What's up, y'all, the little faith, and welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the Fagnostic Podcast. I'm your hostess, not your Moses, Matt Hayes, and if I'm still giving you episodes, it means that I'm still looking for answers. Y'all, we are officially in Pride Month, and I have one of our fiercest allies here with us today. Malynda Hale is a voice with a voice. Originally from Santa Barbara, she has made her way through town as an incredible vocalist who has become a prominent figure on many of today's most controversial topics. From social justice to LGBTQ advocacy, from progressive Christianity to Black Lives Matter, from female empowerment to veganism, and most currently relevant, reproductive choice. She lives a life that is led by the legacy of Christ as she sees it. She has an incredible podcast called #WeNeedToTalk. So when you're done with this one, go on over to that one and give it a good listen. She has served as worship leader at various churches and also sits on the board of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. While I've mostly been an audience member, we do share one credit. Sex sent me to the ER. I am so thankful for voices like hers, and I'm honored to have her share her journey and thoughts on the state of the world from a love-led perspective. Welcome to the show, Malynda Hale. Malynda, I am so honored to have you here on the show today. I've heard you as an audience member for a few years now. Just when I would go to church at Toluca Lake or Hollywood United Methodist, and always been blown away by your voice. But what I don't know if people know is that your voice is actually much bigger than just your vocal abilities. But it's your social activism, your call for justice, and all the work that you do through the different initiatives that you've started. So I'm just so honored to have you here. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to be here, Matt. Thank you so much. And I love that you said that because it's something that I kind of was struggling with throughout my career, feeling like my voice was bigger than just singing. And I did discover that in the last few years. So I love that you said that because it makes me feel like, God definitely has a purpose for what I'm supposed to be doing outside of music as well. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. So first question first, are you a believer?
I am, very much so, very much so.
What does that word mean to you?
I love this question because the definition has changed for me over the years. But for me, being a believer is believing in everything that Jesus set forth for us in terms of how we are supposed to treat others and how we are supposed to be. The 10 Commandments should be people's pillars. If you're a believer, if you're a faith-based person, if you consider yourself a Christian. So for me, it's believing in what Jesus taught, believing in what he did, and believing in what we're supposed to continue doing in terms of keeping his legacy alive.
I love that you look at it as his legacy, as opposed to like mandates or rules. It changes the game, and we'll come back to that.
Okay,
we'll write that word down. And then second question: can you identify your pronouns for us?
Yes, she and her.
Awesome, thank you. And it is Pride Month officially.
Yes.
And because I'm going to drop this pretty soon, so you're my first Pride guest.
Oh, awesome.
And I know that you are a fierce ally for our community. And I want to talk about that because you're one of the most, to me, one of the biggest voices in queer advocacy, in gospel music, and just that's being heard right now. And it's such a shame that the voices like yours are not the ones that are rising to the top right now, because I think the media thrives on division anyway. But if Christianity is going to be sticking around for a while, it's going to be because of folks like you speaking up to that legacy of Christ that you just talked about.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And I'm trying to live my life in the way that Jesus did, and I fully believe that Jesus would be at the front of the Pride Parade, supporting everyone. I fully do. So, that's where I'm going to be too. So, I just think that if you are a Christ follower and a believer, that you should absolutely be supporting and advocating for the LGBTQ community, because we're supposed to love others, and that's all that we are called to do. No judgment, no anything. You're supposed to love people.
Well, we got some folks to talk to about that who don't agree with you.
Yes, we do.
So you grew up in the AME church, which is pretty conservative from my understanding. How did you go from that? Because that's pretty evangelical still, and fundamentalist. How did you go from that to having a more evolved association with Christ?
Well, it's interesting because the AME church that I actually grew up in was pretty progressive.
Oh.
And so, I know. So it's very different from a lot of the other AME churches that you probably have heard of, and the evangelical Black churches and stuff. So I grew up with my family being progressive, with the people that I went to church with being progressive, I was actually always exposed to the LGBTQ community at a very early age. I was never told in my church that it was wrong. And so I actually wasn't exposed to evangelicalism and conservative Christianity until I went to college. And I was blown away by that because I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I know this person or I know this person. I grew up around them. I was never told it was wrong. Like everyone was like cool with each other. So I was really surprised by that theology and that interpretation of Jesus's teachings and interpretation of the Bible because it's not how I grew up. And I'm so grateful to my mom and the church home that I grew up in because I don't know if I didn't have that foundation where I would be in my faith journey or if I would be kind of going through the deconstruction journey is what we're calling it now and figuring out that actually is wrong now. But I lived, 30 years of my life. That's all I've ever known. So when I heard being gay was wrong, quote unquote, I was like, says who? Like because it was something that I didn't know. I had never heard that being said before. So I am very privileged in that sense and very, very lucky and blessed that I didn't grow up having any form of church trauma or division in that sense or hypocrisy or judgment towards the LGBTQ community. And I think that's just why I am the person that I am. So I really am thankful to my mother. My dad really wasn't a church person, but I'm really grateful to my mom because all she did was teach us love. And that's what the church that I went to also taught.
Oh my gosh, if only it was that simple. And
it should be though, right?
You're right.
It should be.
You're right. I mean, we talked, I forget if I'd hit record already, but one of the songs that I love all your music, but one of the songs I love of yours is God and Your Gun. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a hypothetical gun, but after the past 2 weeks, we see how closely associated God and guns can be, and patriotism. And so hearing it today before interviewing you, I just was so shook to my core of and then you hit the nail on the head. You were like, I hate that my work continues to be relevant. Like it's trauma. It sucks that you have to keep speaking up to these issues that we've been, it's mind boggling to me. And it makes me scared that we're never going to lose the relevance of the work that artists like you do. But thank God you keep doing it because otherwise we'll just get jaded and cynical and lose faith. And then legacy.
And that's the other thing. I don't want people to be desensitized to these situations. And I am concerned that anytime, we have a mass shooting or we have something happen with, Black Lives Matter with police brutality or LGBTQ community, people are just like, that's American culture. It's like, no, but let's not make that American culture. We have to stop it. American culture is supposed to be about diversity. It's supposed to be about love. And for people that say that this is a Christian nation, even though it isn't, and we could talk about that too, because it technically is a secular nation. But for those that want to say it's a Christian nation, so what does that mean? It means we're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to respect each other. And if you're following the 10 Commandments, none of the other stuff that these people tend to have problems with have anything to do with those 10 Commandments.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So, because I laughed when in just doing my research for you, I didn't know where you went to school, but you went to Azusa Pacific, which is a very, very conservative university. And I laughed when it showed that you had a minor in musical theater, and I was like, as if this school that probably doesn't allow homosexual conversations and relationships is going to have a degree program that pretty much caters to every gay boy I know. What is that about?
And the funny thing is that, I shouldn't say funny, but everyone that was in the musical theater program is now out and proud now, which I'm so glad. Yeah. But at the time, in me being, you never want to assume, but I'm just like, I wish you didn't feel like you had to hide it. You know what I mean? And I know so many people, and now they're fine. But yes, they were all in the musical theater program.
Yeah,
they were all in the musical theater program. We were very close friends, and I understood. And I did have people come out to me because they felt like I was a safe space, and I always want to be a safe space for people, always. And I was like, well, I don't know what this school's telling you or your church, but God loves you, and He made you the way that you are. So go be out and proud when you feel comfortable, right? And now they're removed from that situation, and they are. But yes, it was an eye-opening experience being at that school because I went for the music program because the music program was really, really high-end. I owe my music education to that school, absolutely. And I don't take one day back from it, from everything that I learned. I don't think I'd be the singer and the musician that I was had I not gone there. But I was really blown away by how close-minded and sheltered and just wrong a lot of people's views were. That there's no other way to say it. It was just wrong.
Do you feel a lot of people, like maybe specifically the people that have come out since that program, maybe went to that school in an effort to continue fixing themselves or to continue trying to cover up this thing that they could not get rid of?
Absolutely. I mean, I know friends definitely that had gone to, pray the gay away camps, conversion therapy. Maybe if I'm surrounded by more Christians, maybe this will be removed from me. Maybe if I date a girl or maybe if I date a guy or whatever, it'll change. And it's like, I can't imagine what that must feel like, to feel like you're trying to alter yourself, even though God made you this way, just to typically please other people. It's not to please yourself. It's to please other people and what they think you should be. And so I'm so glad that now so many of my friends from college that are out now are free and happy. And I love that. And honestly, one of my theater teachers, who was the head of the musical theater program, he is now out now. And he, divorced his wife. He has 2 kids, but we all knew when we were there. And I still am in touch with him. I have never seen him happier. And it makes me so happy that he finally, now in his 50s, is living his life and his true self and his true identity, when he's suppressed it for almost 20 years. He was married to a woman and had 2 kids. And I just can't imagine hiding your true self and your identity for that long just to please other people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of kids, you have a beautiful child that you had sometime during COVID, right?
Yes. 2 weeks into COVID, I gave birth.
Oh my God. So was your husband allowed in the hospital?
Yes. We missed it by 1 week. I don't know what I would have done if I had to give birth alone. So yes, he was able to be there with me. Thank God. Because I didn't have a difficult birth, but it definitely wasn't easy. But giving birth in general isn't easy.
It does not sound like something I ever want to do.
I wouldn't recommend it. I want another one, but it's still not a fun experience.
God,
she's amazing.
Imagine my dad, the week of COVID, got diagnosed with brain cancer, and so he had to have emergency surgery about 3 weeks into COVID, which is when the most ultimate of chaos was going on.
Yeah.
And so he woke up from having brain surgery in a hospital room alone without my mom. And not, knowing who he is, where he was. For 7 days, he had to be alone. In this, I know. And so we, it actually, brought all of us a lot closer for obvious reasons. But just, being, 2,000, they're in Alabama, they're being 2,000 miles separated. It was, a little easier for me to not have to know that, I'm seeing the hospital and I can't go in. But I just can't imagine, moms during that time having to, go in and give, create this. It's the moment where life is seen, and you don't have your partner there to I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you missed that.
Yeah, I'm very glad that I was able to have him with me.
Lord, how did y'all meet? You and your husband?
We met New Year's Eve 2009 at Universal Studios. He thought he was flirting with me, but he insulted me. And then 9 months later,
that's how we do it, though.
Engaged.
That's how guys flirt.
That's what, apparently, right? That's what they think. But yeah, then we were engaged 9 months later. I kid you not. And we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's incredible.
He's a good one. I'm going to keep him.
Good. I am still looking for my good one. But in the meantime, I'm just focusing on being the good one.
Yeah. I love that.
So I'm so just still confused because you grew up very fortunate in terms of not having that religious bigoted trauma that a lot of us do. And then you went to an organization or a school that did kind of, preach some of the things that we're up against now. But you still, even immersed in that, you still maintained your outlook on what it really means to be a Christian, which is love-led. How did you not lose that? Because and we'll get into it, but you're an activist for reproductive rights, for Black Lives Matter, for, queer voices. How did you not lose? How did they not squash what was in you?
That's a great question. I think, again, I'm going back to my mother, who was just a beautiful, strong, educated Black woman. And I think the foundation that she laid in me and in my sister, had I not had that, I believe that I could have been persuaded or quote unquote brainwashed in a certain way. And I say this on every podcast that I've done that's been more faith-based. I went into Azusa liberal and I came out super, super liberal because I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. Like, this isn't right. And I just knew in my heart what it meant to be someone who loved everything that Jesus stood for, that really believed in God and had our own relationship with God. And I just wanted to make sure that was strengthened. And so I think it's just really, I've always been very self-aware. I mean, I've been self-aware since I was like 2. Like my parents will say this, I'm very independent and knew what I wanted. When I was 5, I knew I wanted to be a singer because I saw Whitney Houston. I always knew Easter speeches in church. Like I was very good at academics. I was just always ahead of the game with things. So knowing who I was when I got to college, it just really enforced that, no, this is right. What I'm doing is right. And I'm not going to allow what you guys think to sway me. So really I think it's just self-awareness in how I was raised. So it's just a testament to my parents. Yeah.
Did they ever sit you down, like the dean of some department, be like, look, you are loving too loudly. You're loving too many types of people that we don't approve of. Like, did you ever, because I mean, I have guests who've, gone to Brigham Young or to, Liberty or to, wherever. And they, there are rules against being okay with people that they don't approve of. Like, did they ever address you about any of that?
No, actually. I mean, I will say that my vocal stances really didn't come to fruition until after college, but a lot of my private conversations with friends and people, just, peers, they were surprised by some of my views and how I was like the only Democrat there and super, super liberal. And I was like, what's wrong with being gay? And what's wrong with dating somebody that's not a Christian or whatever? Like, I was just very vocal in that sense, but not like with the school. I had to deal with other things with the school, like being the only Black person in the theater department and
ask about that.
Being used as kind of a way to be like, look, we have diversity. We have one Black person, called them out on that stuff all the time. So I was dealing with my own issues. So no, I never really had those conversations, but it was really just a peer-led conversations that I had in regards to those things.
Did your faith ever take a hit in just being like, what am I up against? I can't keep fighting the good fight.
That's a really great question. I mean, I think everyone's faith is challenged at any given time in their life. I would say maybe I questioned like, why did I come to this school? 1 or 2, am I a Christian? Because I don't seem to align with what everybody else seems to think is a Christian. So like, what am I if I'm believing this? And so I wouldn't say it was necessarily my faith, but more so, is this the group that I fit into? Yeah.
I asked a guest one time, do you feel like there is room in the world for another Christ-based religion? Because I feel like the word Christianity is just so damaged at this point.
It is.
And I don't know how the good people like you left are able to repair it. What are your thoughts on the future of this? And I hate to call what you practice a religion, because what you practice is a lifestyle of love.
Yeah.
But where do you see the future of Christianity?
I feel like I've had this conversation many times, and I feel like Christianity has obviously been hijacked. We know this, right? It's been hijacked. It's been turned into something negative. And I don't want to say that I don't say I'm a Christian anymore, but I do say that I'm a Christ follower. And when I say that, people are like, oh, well, what do you mean by that? But
it's almost like scary to hear somebody say that, because it's like, oh, so you're for real. Because someone can say I'm a Christian, but you don't. But they're not Christ followers. So if they hear you say I'm a Christ follower, it actually puts you in a position of power. I would think that's terrifying to them.
Well, yeah, but also it makes them listen more, because when you hear the word I'm a Christian, like I even asked on my Twitter once, like, when you hear the word Christian, what do you think? And all it was negativity, right?
I roll.
Right. It was just all negativity. They think hate, there's, what's that phrase? Like, there's no love, there's no hate like Christian love or something like that, but and I get that. And I'm like, and that sucks. And for me, I feel like already as a Black woman, I already have to defend myself in so many other situations. Like, I don't want to have to defend myself saying I'm a Christian. So when I say I'm a Christ follower, people are more likely to like listen to, oh, well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, I believe in what Jesus taught. And they like listen, they're like, oh, cool. And even by saying that, like I've had people that are atheists or not believers like come to church before, when I was leading at Harmony and stuff, and they were like, oh, this is different. I get it. Now, whatever church you go to, like I would totally go to, because you're not what I thought a Christian was. So I think is, as you said before, if we have more progressive voices start to be loud, that we can start to make a difference. But the problem is that the people with the microphones are the ones that are weaponizing scripture and misusing Jesus. They're also the ones that are still showing pictures of Jesus as a white man. Like we have to fix all of that. So I just need more progressive Christians to speak out and be loud, but be loud with their love. And I think that it unfortunately it's the other stuff that's a lot louder, but we just have to all band together because there's a lot of us out there. I don't think that we're as small of a group as it seemed. It's just that those other people are really, really loud.
Well, and it also leads to a question of who, they have the microphone. Who's giving them the microphone?
Yeah.
Because you're right in that. I mean, this podcast has proven that, because this podcast, I started it out as an attempt to just squash religion. And I know that sounds egotistical, this, little ginger boy in California can take out religion. Okay, cool, sis. But it has since become me desperately needing to appreciate things about my upbringing. And so having voices on yours are what validate, your childhood wasn't a waste. What you believed growing up is still somewhat valid. There are moral guidelines there that you can appreciate and love. And that's why I went to Hollywood United Methodist Church and Harmony in Toluca Lake. And just so my listeners know, it's those are two sister churches. I think they're still sister churches. That's based in Los Angeles. And HUMC was actually one of the first churches in the country that welcomed people living with HIV and AIDS in the 80s at a time when they didn't know how it was transmitted. And they still said, "We love you. Come into our church and just be yourself." And so as a result, the bell tower has this gorgeous giant red ribbon on it. And I love that you see it from all the way down Highland. And it's just this prominent feature. And I just think that's a church. I almost said that's a fucking church, but that's a church, and even in my agnosticism, I loved going. This is before COVID, and I want to go back because I loved that community. But the things that I miss about Christianity is the community, is the music, is the collaborative, energetic experience. Which, the more I study and read and stuff, the more that I'm not unconvinced that the idea of Jesus could be completely metaphysical, and that it's a group of 12 guys who just got stoned together in the desert and were like, y'all, are y'all feeling what I feel right now? Are y'all with me? But I just loved those congregations because it was voices like yours and, Reverend Denise and Reverend Kathy that were preaching the real love of Christ that I'd never really saw before,
Absolutely. In my first experience with that, well, outside of, when I was younger, obviously in church, you don't pay attention. Let's just be honest, right? You don't pay attention. And then I got exposed to chapel and other pastors when I was in college, and I was like, eh. And then I went to New York and I was assistant worship leader in a mega church. And then that didn't work out. And so I took a big church break. But when I really discovered what a church community could be like was when I lived in Chicago and I went to Broadway United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And that's how I involved in the United Methodist Church, UMC in general. And then I came out to LA, but I was like, oh, wow, this is what church is. This is just loving and inclusive.
Yeah.
They're not weaponizing scripture in any way. Everyone's just having a great time. This is what it's supposed to be as community. So UMC really is doing some great work in terms of being diverse, being inclusive, and trying to really preach the gospel as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even watching Harmony and HUMC really leading the way in defining what it means to be a UMC church, because there are a lot of UMC churches who are not on board with equality and progress. And I'm COVID kind of killed the attempt, I think, for there to be a divide in that congregation. But I'm waiting for it to pick back up again. And I'm shocked that I haven't seen more about it. Just with all the things that can divide us these days, I'm shocked that there has not been more of a push from that small faction of the UMC organization to bring back the conversation of division.
Well, I think there might be, because Reverend Denise, actually, she is taking on a new role within the UMC conference, and I think she's going to be making a lot of big changes. I mean, she's just a force, and I adore her. She's one of my favorite human beings, and I think she's going to do some great stuff. I really do. So I think we just need to watch out for it.
She literally saved Jesus for me. And I don't know if that makes sense, but she literally, I live behind the HUMC in Hollywood, and Easter Sunday, probably 5-6 years ago at this point, I just woke up, I was like, I want to feel traditional today. And I put on my Sunday best, not knowing that that's not a church where you wear your Sunday best. And so I walked down and she had like, purple hair and she's wearing like a rainbow sash, like, a cloak. And I'm just like, where? And there's also like a trans person speaking from the pulpit. And I was like, where the hell am I right now?
Yeah.
And she completely inspired. I wrote a movie called Cognitive that was about growing up gay in the church, about a little boy that thinks he has AIDS because of what the church teaches.
Oh,
and
wow.
there's a character in it that's based on Denise because of her message. But that's what I mean. It's just like, why I'm curious as to how you sustain your faith when you turn on any news station, any coverage about the church, and it's all what you're up against. How do you sustain yourself? And I guess that's also what I would hope for to be a takeaway for my listeners, of people who are struggling to maintain any sense of faith. How do you maintain your connection with the divine in this world?
One, it's being able to have a community. I think finding your people is a huge part of it, because it is a lonely process and it's a lonely journey, especially when you discover it, especially if, like, let's say if any of your listeners have grown up in the evangelical conservative world, maybe they're trying to find their way out. Find your people. There's this beautiful group that I'm a part of on Facebook called the New Evangelicals, that people just love God, love Jesus, but they're all progressives for the most part, or they're going through the deconstruction journey of like leaving the conservative evangelical church, and they're asking questions, and they're curious about things, and it's a place, it's a safe place, it's a safe space to grow and to figure out your faith and your journey. So I think finding your people is really important, but also your relationship with God is your relationship with God. And I think that once you know that, it makes it a lot easier. Nobody can tell you what your relationship with God is supposed to be or should be. It is individual for all of us. All of our journeys we're all unique. God made us who we are for a reason. So once you can come to terms with that, and just damn everybody else, it's a lot easier to stay true to your faith and stay connected, because it's between the two of you. And I pray, I meditate all the time. I write, I yell, I cuss, like you have to go through the process, but you just have to have that relationship with God.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things you're doing, I think, to also sustain your faith is you've got the project We Need to Talk. Can you talk about your podcast?
Yes. So I actually started the podcast started as a live panel series that I was doing at Harmony, because I wanted to bring social justice into the church, because I think churches should be the leaders in social justice. If we're actually looking at what Jesus did, he was like the original social justice warrior. So I started bringing panels to the church of talking about race in America, talking about LGBTQ in the church, talking about the criminal justice system, mental health, all of that stuff. And because podcasts were starting to become a thing, I started the podcast in 2019, and then it really started to take off during the pandemic because everybody was home and needed something to listen to. And it just kind of spiraled into these beautiful, meaningful conversations with a wide variety of people in different journeys and backgrounds. And the whole purpose for me with that podcast is everything begins with the conversation. Like, you can't do anything without talking about it. And I think nowadays with social media and everything, people are just so afraid to talk to each other and are afraid to ask questions. And as I said before, I always want to feel like I'm a safe place for people to land. And so I want people to know that, like, if they want to ask me a question or they're curious about something, one, listen to the podcast and see how I engage with people. But also, you're never going to get an answer if you don't ask. And I think people shouldn't be afraid to ask, but I think people should also be more willing and have more grace to give people the answers that they're seeking, especially if they're trying to change or trying to understand. So We Need to Talk is the name of the podcast, because we need to talk about a lot of stuff that's going on. And it's been such a labor of love for me. And I've been so blessed to talk to so many incredible people that, I come from every episode learning something new, thinking of something differently, a new perspective, or just kind of validating something I already thought as well. But it's been a journey, and I'm so grateful for the listeners that I have and the guests that have been on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find it on any platform, any podcast
any
platform.
Yeah. # We Need to Talk.
Yeah, great. One of the things, because especially with what's going on right now, like, I feel like no matter how much you heal from your religious trauma, and I know that you don't have a ton in terms of like what I'm going to be talking about, but like, I look at now and I'm like, y'all, if all this stuff in the Bible is real, I'm pretty sure that 7-year tribulation is about to hit. Like, I'm waiting to see like the bodies fly up into the air and like, the frogs start falling from the sky. How do you, like, in terms of reading the Bible literally, how do you as a Christ follower navigate that conversation?
I don't, honestly.
Like, I don't have it. That's how.
I don't. I've never been, excuse me, I've never been a huge Bible person. I'm just going to be honest about that. I think that the Bible serves its purpose.
Yeah.
I think that there's some beautiful passages that we can apply to our lives in positive ways. I think that it can be weaponized. I think it can be misinterpreted. I think it's full of contradictions, but I also think that it is antiquated and it's archaic and it was man-written. And I think that if we're going to use the Bible in any way, shape, or form, I'm not going to say I'm anti-Old Testament. However, if we're Christ followers, we should be focusing on everything that happened from Jesus and after, right?
Right.
But all arguments that I hear about anything always come from the Old Testament. So it's like,
no.
Are we following what Jesus said, or what are we doing? Like
I get
make
tired
a decision.
of having to ask the question, like, have you stoned your wife lately? Like, have you had pork this month? I mean, it's just like, you cannot
those
separate.
fabrics don't match,
yes.
Aaron. Like,
right.
That's
a whole nother conversation.
It is.
But but you're so right. Like, it's just, I often think that people who are so evangelical are often evangelical, like, the Great Commission, Matthew, 28, 19 and 20, I think, is about, going forth and making disciples of all nations and whatever. But I feel like it's just an attempt to sustain your own ego, to prove yourself right. And that's what I'm like. So who are you doing it for? Is this, I mean, if you're going to witness to me, that's fine. I can hold my own. But is this, I mean, I've read the 4 truths. Is this about you or is this about me? I don't know.
Yes. Oh man, that is such a great point, which is so interesting because what I do think is very clear in the Bible and what we're called to do is to be selfless.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's not what I see a lot of self-proclaimed Christians doing. Yep. It is about their own self-interest, about what they believe, and about what they're against too, and not who they're for.
Yes.
That's what bothers me.
It's the same
if
thing.
If you call yourself a Christian, you should be for people. It's not about who you're against.
It's that conversation of expansiveness versus limiting. And it's the same thing with like mission work. I mean, I went on so many mission trips growing up, and it's always when you come back at the question is, how many people did you save? How many numbers did you get for our data so we can report to the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, about how good we're doing so we can make more money? It's like, why are you doing this? Like, is your life not enough? The way that you live, is it not enough? I mean, is the contingency to go build a school for some kids in Africa just based on if they say, okay, you're right? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and I know that there are wonderful people out there who do selfless mission work.
Absolutely.
But I just think like people are hurting next door to you.
Absolutely.
Why don't you
down
just
the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes me so sad. And I mean, because of the things I post on Twitter, like I of course get inundated with like my biggest, like, I hate to call him my arch rival because like he doesn't know who the hell I am, but like John MacArthur is a name up in Santa Clarita who, I mean, in high school, I was studying to become a pastor. And so every summer in high school and some of college, I came out to California to go to his pastor's training conference. And I would just like, I remember the music minister who I thought might have been midlife gay, I don't know, drove this like flashy Corvette. And it was just like, I kept just buying into it. And now that I see him, telling, was it Joyce Meyer? Is she the woman that he told to sit down because she's a woman that's speaking from the pulpit?
John MacArthur's done a lot. There's a long list of stuff.
Yes. And now, as of like a month ago, we found out that he also was part of the sexual abuse cover-up of his own freaking congregation members. Like, And I look at his community where his church is, and it's largely, Hispanic families. And I just think like it's all these white men leading this congregation and attracting these people who are, wanting to feel seen and heard and normal and safe. And you're just pandering to them and you're taking advantage of their 10% weekly tithe. And like, Malynda, it just drives me freaking crazy.
I'm right there with you.
How, if your baby grows up and says like, I don't know that I believe in Christ, what would you say?
Oh gosh, no one's actually asked me this question, but I am very much of the mindset that I want her to discover whatever she wants on her own. And I'm definitely following in my parents' footsteps. You know, we did go to church. I'm not going to lie. My mom made us go to church all the time.
Right.
But she was very clear on, she didn't baptize me. She said, that's your decision.
Yeah.
And I made that decision on my own because I wanted to give my life over in that way. And
I got baptized twice because the first one didn't take.
Oh man,
I don't think the second one did either, though. Now
oh my gosh, that's hilarious! It's hilarious. But I mean, I'm definitely open to having the conversation with her. My whole thing is that I just want you to believe in something, and as long as it's positive, you know, and have something that helps guide you in your life, that brings you comfort. For me, that has been Jesus and his teaching, that has been God's presence. You know, my husband's not very spiritual or religious. He believes in God, but if he could choose whether to watch football or go to church, he will be on the couch watching football. And that's totally fine, you know? So I'm definitely the type of mom and person that I'm not going to force my beliefs on someone, and I want her to discover what she believes in and what she feels. You know, I'm vegan too, for example. People always ask me, are you going to make your daughter vegan? I'm like, no. I mean, she has vegan food. And if she discovers later on, you know, I don't really like pork either, Mom, then good for you. I'll tell you the reasons why I chose not to eat meat. I'll also tell you the reasons why I believe in Jesus and everything that he does. And if you decide to come along with me, great. If you decide you want to be Buddhist, as long as you're happy. That's how I feel. Yeah.
So you do believe that there's space in the collective heaven for other paths to divinity?
Oh my gosh. That's what I think, that people limit God.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that the only path to God is Christianity? God is everything. God is everything and everywhere. I think that's what's the beauty of who God is that there are so many paths to he, she, it, however you view God, right? I mean, either way, I feel that it all goes back to God. I think it all goes back to the same God. It's like, well, here's this buffet. You choose which one works for you, but you're going to end up back to me anyway. Yeah. That's what I've always think. And that's definitely more of kind of like a Unitarian view. But I think that's what's so beautiful about the world. There are so many different paths to God. And the thing that bothers me about a lot of evangelical Christianity is that they're not accepting of an interfaith existence. And
which is the thing that they're very much against, you know, as it relates to like Catholicism. They get so irritated with like, oh, you're letting this other person determine your faith. Like that's the only way to get to the divine. Hello, pot kettle. Like, are you hearing yourself?
Hello, exactly.
One of the things that I've kind of come and because I feel like the end of this season, this is season 2 of the podcast. I'm anticipating like, I hate to call it a come to Jesus moment, but like there's something that I'm witnessing, that I'm feeling and experiencing right now, that if there's an ultimate divine presence, and whether it's the universe or the Christian God or whatever, I feel like the divine is big enough to speak to people and how they're culturally raised. So like someone who maybe is raised in Buddhism, that's how they see the divine. Someone who is raised in, you know, the deep South, like that's how they experience the divine, through that messaging. And that's why I'm kind of coming to like a piece about how I was raised in the church of like, oh no, that's just like, you know, whether it be nothing but lessons and overcoming awareness of privilege and overcoming, you know, the fact that no Black and white people went to the same church in my town, like, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, I just feel like I'm really seeing, and I feel like Oprah, she got in a lot of trouble back in the day because she kind of started that awakening movement about the wagon wheel. But she was like, look, I believe that, you know, God is this wagon, the center of the wagon wheel, and all these spokes are different ways that you interact with it. And she got so much flack for it. And now, you know, and even like yesterday, I think was the anniversary of, she posted some, you know, this is probably like in the mid 90s. And this girl was in her panel on her show just attacking her for calling herself a Christian and then being okay with being gay.
I remember that video. I do.
I forgot about it until somebody posted it yesterday. And I was like, Oprah's been leading this way. Like she knew before any of us did.
Yeah. Yep. I love it.
I love that you have this approach to faith, and that like whatever guides you, whatever goods you, that is what's working. Yeah, it's such an expansive view of love and of God. What do you say to people? Because I imagine, I mean, just because of your social media presence, you encounter a lot of people who come for you. What do what do you say to someone who is either struggling with their faith, from a queer perspective, and they're just, or what do you say to someone who is struggling with their faith because they are feeling the natural desire to love someone, but that they're so confined by their religiosity? I mean, how do you navigate those waters with people that are so committed to like this fundamentalism that doesn't allow for love?
Oh gosh, that last bit of that sentence, that doesn't allow for love, that struck me, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like what you've chosen to follow and believe, it doesn't allow for love. And how does that reflect Jesus? And that's the other thing. So I always ask people, what did Jesus say? You know, those old school braces, what would Jesus do? I ask people, what did Jesus say? And that's usually where the conversation ends, because they can't answer it, because he didn't say anything about anything that you have an issue with, right?
Nothing.
And so it makes me sad that that's usually where the conversation ends, because that shows that you have a very warped view of what religion you've chosen to follow. You can't even say what Jesus said about what you're saying right now. You can't tell me what Jesus said about the LGBTQ community, because it's not there.
Yep.
You can't tell me what Jesus said about abortion, because it's not there. You can't tell me that Jesus was pro-gun, because guns didn't exist back then. So, you know what I mean?
Nuggets, yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And I have realized at this point that instead of us being made in God's image, they've made God in their image. In order for them
remember
to
that golden bull that they got pissed about back in the Old Testament? Like, oh, so now you're going to like it. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see what you're doing, Christians.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this could go so deep, but I said, I don't remember when I said this, but I said that white evangelicals, you know, the ones that are talking about CRT for the most part and diversity and all of this stuff, right? They fully understand what representation is, because they made Jesus look like them in order for them to feel represented.
Thank you.
Right? So what we have to do, and this is so hard, but Michelle Obama said it best, when they go low, we have to go high. This is just what we're supposed to do, especially if we're calling ourselves Christ followers, right? Because that's what Jesus would do. We have to let them know that they can be unified with us by love and not by who they're against. And that's something that I'm trying to drive forward. It's easy to find a community through hate. Sadly, it is. Yeah. It truly is. There's so many pockets of people that are just angry, right? Angry, looking to fight. Just they don't even know why they're angry. But if we can let them know that, hey, you are represented on this side, even if you feel like you're not, you're loved. That's the step that we have to make. And that's why it says in the Bible, love your enemies, right?
I was about to say, that's the most gracious, humble, merciful approach to what we're up against that I've ever heard.
It's so difficult. Don't get me wrong, but it's what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So if we can make those attempts and put our egos aside, because it's an ego thing with us too. We don't want to have to do it. It's not just about people on the other side's ego. So if we can put our own egos aside, be selfless in that way, have grace and understanding, and try to approach it that way, it takes work, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. And that's what I try to do. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I definitely have said some things back to people on social media when I didn't really like it. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being gracious. I'm tired of being nice. I'm human, right? But the point is that you're supposed to try.
Yeah.
And so I think if we're always trying to approach things that way, we'll get a lot further.
Ugh. Just because of what's going on right now with Roe v. Wade, how do you have, let's say that you get invited to speak at some women's conference and it's a conservative conference, and how do you convince people of faith to at least hear the conversation on reproductive freedom?
It's
I don't know. And I'm a man, so I can only speak so much in advocacy, which I do, but still, I know that this is a female issue that's being driven by men. So I also want to step back and say, how do you do this?
Yeah. I actually serve on the board for RCRC, which is the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Care. And they do some of the most God work I've ever seen, to be honest.
Is it interdenominational?
It is. It is. It's interfaith board. It's really beautiful. And the education that they are doing and the care that they're providing for people that need it is impeccable. And it truly is Jesus' work. I think that the thing, there's a post by a pastor, and this is the best way for me to summarize this. It's a post by the pastor that talks about people that advocate for the unborn, and that it is actually the easiest form of advocacy there is out there because it doesn't require anything of you.
Yes. Y'all can't see my face, but I just was like, oh my God, that's what it is. That explains it all.
It doesn't require anything. And so if you are choosing to be a person of faith, and this is the only platform that you're standing on, you're not really choosing to do the work that Jesus did or live like him, because Jesus was out there in the field with everybody, right? Yeah. And so when I talk to people about why I am pro-choice, one, I try to come at it from a Black woman perspective, because one, again, this is a longer conversation, but you go into the mortality rate is higher in the Black community. One, there is still heavy racism in the medical field and medical care. Two, three, poverty. People of color are in higher poverty stricken areas. So if you can't provide for a child, or you know that you're going to not be listened to in medical care, or there's a higher chance of you dying, you have to think of all of those situations before thinking that someone's just getting rid of their baby because they don't want it.
Yep.
And I think that when you approach something so black and white, cut and dry like that, you are erasing all the other variables and all the other factors and stories that are a heavier part of the decision than just, like I said, quote unquote, you could think someone's irresponsible, think that they don't want the baby. That's really a minimal aspect of it. Now, granted, I'm not going to say there are people who are irresponsible. There are people who just make the mistake and they're like, oh, well, I don't want a baby. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a vast majority of people that their circumstances have determined what their decision has to be. And it is a heavy, heavy, heavy decision.
Yes.
So I try to think from the when I have these conversations with Christians, truly, if you were in these situations, which are the highest reasons for abortion, what would you do? And when you lay it out like that and not just try to be arguing, it really is interesting to see people be taken aback because they're like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And if I can get somebody to say that I didn't think of it that way, then I know that I'm making a little bit of an impact. Yes. I know that I am. And that's really just what I try to do. It's hard because I get it. People have their convictions, they have their beliefs, they have everything. But it's all about having that conversation and just trying to lay it out with grace.
That's so beautiful. You're the way that you just, because it's basically just, you're putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
But the way that you make it so specific with in this situation, imagine it's the magic if, in acting training, imagine you are broke. Imagine you are working 2 jobs. Imagine you are on birth control, and yet imagine all these circumstances. What would you do? Mm-hmm. It makes it so personal.
Yeah, yeah.
I admire your faith in faith, and your hope for the impact of the legacy of Christ through you, especially. What would you say to the divine were they standing before you?
Honestly, it would be just a simple thank you. Just a simple thank you, because I'm just indebted, honestly, for guidance, for love, for comfort when I'm alone, and for trust in me. Just being able to give me a voice that requires trust. So to be given that and shows that the divine thinks that I'm worthy of something, and that makes me feel good. You put this job and responsibility in my lap, and I don't want to take it for granted. So it would just be a thank you. It would be a simple thank you.
I love that. Malynda, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your voice today. And B, I also, I want to send you off with like wishes, because I know that, and I don't have quite the voice that you do in terms of like a presence digitally, but I hope that you do so much to take care of your soul and spirit, because I know what you're up against, and not just religiously, but as a woman, as a female of color, as a person of faith in a very liberal town. Like, I hope that you take care of yourself, and I trust that you have your community of people that keep you lifted. And because what you say, everything you speak is just, it beams with joy and love and grace. And I know that can be exhausting, to have to maintain that. So I hope that you take care of yourself.
I do. I eat a lot of ice cream and I watch Netflix. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation.
I appreciate you. And I will, y'all go listen to her music, go listen to her podcast, her voice, both vocally and I don't even know the word. Anything that a voice can mean is Malynda Hale. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Matt, you're so sweet. Thank you.
And all the people said, gay men. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Fagnostic Podcast, hosted by me, Matt Hayes. You can find me at matthayes.com, that's MATHAYES.com, or on just the millennial socials at Hayes on It, HAYES on It. Please go subscribe, review, and share this podcast. And in the meantime, peace be with all y'all.
Hi, Michael Spicer here. Matt Hayes forgot to put my name in the credits of his podcast as the composer, but I'm here to tell you that I wrote the music for his podcast. Whatever it's called, I don't know.